Today we're going to look at ARUtils-TimeTracker. This function assists you in keeping track of time spent in projects, and as you jump from project to project, it will keep track of the project that you're in. And if you also leave a project for some time, perhaps you've gone out to lunch, it'll also take account of the fact that you haven't in fact worked on the project. With TimeTracker enabled, there's very little to see as far as the ARUtils interface goes. The process runs silently in the background, recording the files and project numbers that a user works in. It also records the activity, so if a user leaves a file open during lunchtime, for example, time will be indicated that the file is open. However, the user is not in fact working. So let's have a look at the sort of information that's actually recorded. We'll just go to our logs folder. So you'll see here that we've got a number of log or time tracker files. They're in a CSV format. We'll open up one of these. Let's have a look at Fred. So we'll just expand the fields so that we can see what we've got. So the first line will always be a message about when TimeTracker recording started, the date and the time. We then have a header which tells us what event caused a particular record to be entered, the time it happened, the file or project number. So this is taken from the project number field as far as Revit's concerned, or alternatively, if that hasn't been set, it can actually be determined by using the full file path. So here you can see we've recorded, we store all of our projects into a project number folder, and we can actually extract that information there to in fact populate the file and project information. So we've got those two sort of processes. We've then got how much time has elapsed since the last event, and also how much of a change there's been in the journal file. That value is relevant as far as has a user actually worked during that period, making changes, running commands. So, as you can see, the user has jumped between various files. Different job numbers or project numbers have been used. They've then exited out of Revit, and that's initiated timekeeping again. So all of this is a log of a number of weeks of usage for a particular user. Okay, so we've got all of the information about how a user's worked during a day, what files he's been in, and that's all stored in a file. We could opt to use Excel to process that information. You could write your own scripts or routines to process the information. The other alternative, however, is to use TimeTracker Analyze. So that's available in Revit, in ARUtils. So under the Help menu, we've got TimeTracker Analyze. And TimeTracker Analyze basically allows us to open a number of log files, have them set as input, and it will write out information to a results folder. And we can select what types of reports that we want. Possibly the easiest thing is to show you how it works. So we'll pick that, and we'll do processing for a number of users. So Andreas, Fred and Sally, and we'll just say open those, and we can now just say create reports, and very quickly it's calculated various totals that will be relevant to any manager of a system. Okay, so in our results file, we go in increasing levels of detail. So we begin by looking at the total time spent for a project. We then do the total project time for each user. So here we can see Andreas has worked on 17-1234 and MU689. Fred's worked on these projects, Sally on these ones. We then have the total time spent each week by particular users. So you'll start to see multiple entries for a user if your time period spans multiple weeks. And finally, we have a day-to-day amount of time that a user spends in a project. So all of this analysis is there available for you, perhaps to fill out a timesheet on a day-by-day basis. So the last thing to cover briefly is simply how you implement ARUtils-TimeTracker. And all you really have to do is, in fact, establish a file in either your data folder or your network license folder. So here we've got ARUtils net license, and we've created the file timetracker.config there. It's a simple text file, and if I open that with Notepad, you'll see that it's really quite a simple file. So we've got some information about how often the event timer is executed. So in this case, it's set to every 1 minute. That may be a bit too frequent, but it's all very good for analyzing, seeing exactly the sort of information you're getting out. The output folder, of course, says where the logs should go. And as you've seen, each user will generate a log with their name at the start of the file. You've also got an option to have verbose output. That outputs a lot more information. Minimal output will also reduce that even further. Using minimal output set to true gets rid of all of the idle time events. We also have the option of going for a single file, and that means that each user, when this is set to true, only one file will be written out. If it's set to false, then a new file is done for each day, and that'll start with the typical reverse date format of year, month, day. Now, the other option here is folder job depth. So that enables us to specify that the folder level 1 deep, 2 deep will be indicative of the job number. So in the example we've looked at here, we had C proj slash and then the job number. So by setting this to the appropriate level, it'll pick up on that job number and put it into that project number field, and that will take place if the Revit file doesn't actually have an assigned project number via the project information section. Finally, you've got journal change, and this is how much the journal file needs to change for it to be considered that the user was working in it. So 10 bytes is really quite small. You may decide that a different number would give you better overall data. For the more technical among you, it's possible to run TimeTracker Analyze via command line. So this will enable you to set up scheduled tasks to run, and it can all occur without needing to click buttons, select files, and all the rest of it. So to see what our options are, we can just type in TT. I've made a copy of the file so that TT is another way to start up TimeTracker. And so I'll just type that in, and it then shows you the usage for the TimeTracker command. So we can do things like TT/E for the export folder, and we'll just say, alright, that's going to be C:/temp. We then need to specify which files we actually want to process. So we say /W, and because we're already in the logs folder, we could say, for example, f***.csv. So in this case, that'll just find the Fred CSV file. And we can then specify which reports we want. So /D, maybe we'll just have the daily and the total reports. So it's now processed that, and if we go to the temp folder, you'll see that we've got a new file here, and the files will always come out as ARTT-report.csv, unless of course we've said to prefix it or suffix it. So we'll just double click on that, and you'll see now that we've got a report with all of our totals, and it should be just totals for Fred, because that was the file we were using. And you'll see here that we've got total project time that Fred has been doing things, and then daily project time once again for Fred. So fairly quick and easy to use those command line options. You can set them up as scheduled tasks. You could then include things that move processed files to another folder. But that's all more or less up to a more skilled user. Okay, so by having this configuration file in the net licensing folder, we've enabled time tracking for all machines that are running ARUtils. So TimeTracker forms a part of every ARUtils license type, whether that's user, work-shared user, leader, or head of the family, and of course there's the TimeTracker license itself. So it makes it quite affordable to have all of your users running TimeTracker and keeping track of their work. Hopefully that's given you a good overview of how you can enable time tracking for all of your users in your organization. Thank you very much.